You're listening to Fresh Look with Hen Mazzig, presented by the Israel on Campus Coalition. Welcome back to Fresh Look. This week's episode features pro-Israel activist and world-renowned board-certified plastic surgeon Dr. Sheila Nazarian. Dr. Nazarian's unique background as a Persian Jew gives her valuable insights into the current events in Iran, which are discussed in this week's episode. Dr. Nazarian is an Emmy-nominated, board-certified plastic surgeon with a private practice in Beverly Hills. She founded the Nazarian Institute, where she helps medical professionals develop their business skills by thinking big: branding, innovation, and growth. Dr. Nazarian stars in the Emmy-nominated Netflix original series Skin Decision, before and after. She is also an influencer on social media, where she has amassed almost 1 million followers on Instagram, talking about Jewish identity and combating anti-Semitism. Welcome to the show, Dr. Nazarian.
I'm so excited for our next guest. I've been waiting for this conversation for a while, and I was so honored to finally meet Dr. Sheila Nazarian just recently, and now we're also meeting over this conversation. Thank you so much for being with us, Doctor.
Thanks so much, Had. It was great meeting you over lunch, and now back to virtual. Here we are.
Yes, indeed. And I want to dive straight into our conversation because we have so much to cover. And your story when you escaped Iran, hidden in a truck filled with corn, and became a renowned plastic surgeon with your own TV show on Netflix, Skin Decisions. Make sure you watch it if you haven't yet, and I'm sure everyone did. Your story is truly inspirational, and I want you to tell our listeners how your experience and your life story really shaped you and drove you to be so successful and such an amazing person.
Well, I think, first of all, thank you so much. I think that, it's a very similar immigrant story. Your family leaves everything, brings you here to America for a better opportunity for a Jew, a girl, all of the things. And, when you have that sort of responsibility and that sort of weight, and it's not like my parents pushed me in any way, but it is something that they left everything. Like, can you imagine in your 40s, just going to a country you don't speak the language, leaving a very comfortable life behind just so your children can have more of an opportunity. So that was, that wasn't something that just, I didn't think about. Definitely, I think subconsciously that was a weight. And then also my mom passed away when I was 16 from breast cancer. And so I think, those two things sort of gave me a burn the candle at both ends kind of mentality. I've been given this gift, I've been given this opportunity with health, and in America, where if you work hard and you have talent, you're going to make it. So I just always felt like, I have a huge opportunity here. I can't waste it. So for a very long time, I just put my head down, focused on my studies, focused on my goals, and took little tiny steps towards my dream. And I always tell people, you don't have to exactly know what your dream is. You don't have to exactly know like a straight path to that end goal, but you have to have an idea of what you want your life to look like. And you have to, it might be a little bit more of a windy road than you'd like, but each experience kind of builds and gives you the ammunition to get to that, to get to that place. So that's sort of how I did it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you had so many experiences that helped you become who you are today. And one of the interesting, and I think something that you're really not ashamed of, you're not ashamed of everything. You're very outspoken, and I love that about you. But as a Persian American woman and Jewish woman, what are your thoughts and feelings about the current protest in Iran? Do you think it's a revolution? Do you think we're going to see a change? And how can Americans support those who are fighting against this really oppressive regime?
I kind of have gone through my own evolution, I think, in the last month over what's happening in Iran. I think I felt more of a connection to America and more of a connection to Israel, who supports the Jews. And my family in general, because of how we were treated in Iran and because we had to leave everything behind. If you ask certain members of my family or my husband's family, would you like to go back to Iran? They're like, no way, I never want to go back there again, which is a strange response to have to your mother country, right? But it was almost such a traumatic, disrespectful taste in their mouth that, we were kind of just like, Iran is Iran, it's gone. That Iran that we knew and loved is gone. And so in the last month, seeing the revolution and seeing people stand up and say, no, this is not Iran, this is not us, has made me feel a little bit more connected, actually. So I was at a bar mitzvah a couple weeks ago, and when they started playing Persian music, it hit different. I started hearing it differently. You know, I felt a little bit more connected to that place. Like there's hope. Maybe I can go back one day. Maybe the people there, you know, aren't so brainwashed. Maybe, you know, they do want a different life. Maybe they do want a better life. Maybe they regret what happened. They regret falling for that kind of socialist rhetoric that, oh, everything will be free, the land will be free, everything will be free. And as we know, nothing is free. If you want to get those things for free, you have to give up your freedom. So I think that I feel a little bit more connected now than I ever have, to be honest with you. Just because I feel like maybe there are some shared core values that, like me, run very deep and to the point where they're willing to risk their lives for them. It makes me have more respect. It makes me feel like a little bit more of a connection.
Right. Wow, that's really profound. And do you think Americans can support this? Do you think there is anything that we can do from afar to support it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, looking at the Iran deal, which I think is a complete sham deal, and I've actually been able to have the opportunity to speak to representatives both during the Trump administration and during Obama administration and ask both of them, why make this deal with Iran? Why send them a plane full of money when we know, A, it's not going to go to the Iranian people. It's going to go to fill the pocketbooks of the mullahs and to fund terrorism in the Middle East. As you know, we know Iran is a major terror proxy in that area and beyond. And so basically the answer that I've gotten is that it's basically to kick the problem down maybe a few years. And that was worth it to the administration to not have it happen on their watch. So as you know, Iranians, we know that they're not going to listen. Even if you send them a plane full of money, they're still going to enrich uranium. They're just going to do it deeper underground because you just paid for that, right? And so giving them money is kind of spitting in the faces of the Iranian people who don't want these people to be in power anymore, don't want this regime to be in power anymore. So what can we do? We can pressure our representatives to not send money to Iran. We can pressure our representatives to not give them a platform on US soil, right? Having them come here to speak and giving them a visa to platform them and allow them to spread their ideology and their propaganda. So there's, you know, and then also speaking up on social media, it gives strength to the people of Iran. They actually do see it. So I think it's about speaking up, and I think it's about pressuring our representatives to stop supporting this regime.
Absolutely. What do you say to people that say, and I saw that in several places online and in magazines in America saying, or journals saying that we actually need to give money to Iran because Iranian people are poor. What is their response to that?
The money doesn't make it to the people you want to make it to, right? So it's kind of similar, I think, you know, to the Palestinian argument. We need to send money to the Palestinians. Well, great if it was making it into actual infrastructure or hospitals or actually making it to benefit the Palestinian people, fantastic. But as we know, a lot of it goes towards more terror tunnels, bombs purchased from Iran. So it's not just about sending money and closing your eyes and hoping it makes it to the place. We know it's not making it to the people.
Right. That's super important. Thank you for that. And I think one of the things that you said earlier that really resonate with me, and I'm sure with a lot of people, is that my family came from Iraq and Tunisia. I have no desire to go visit Iraq. I grew up in Israel. I feel like Israel is my home. I can enjoy this culture, but for me, and I think many people, many Jews around the world that are first, second generation, third generation of, or even escaped those countries themselves, we don't really have just such a strong affiliation to this country. We see Israel as our home because it is the home of the Jewish people.
Right.
And you began your activism online in May 2021 when Hamas shot thousands of missiles into Israel, and celebrities and influencers, everyone took to social media and started attacking Israel. I wanted to know why did you feel back then? How did that affected your life? And what is some of the insights that you can share with us about this?
Yeah, so I started doing little acts of bravery, I call them, starting about January 2021. My daughter was, applying to high schools, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's only 4 years away from college. I have to start speaking up because I don't want her to be, one of the statistics that 50% of Jewish college students are afraid to say they're Jewish. So I was like, no, I want her to go. I want her to be proud of who she is. I want her to bring those conversations and, speak to people who don't agree with her, but also be able to be proud of who she is and what she believes in. And so I started doing like hashtag Shabbat Shalom or like, I'm just like posts. And to me, it was scary because we're so traumatized. In Iran, you never said you were Jewish. You never were outwardly proud of that, right? Because you'd get beat up or you would get thrown in jail or bad things would happen. And so it was a very quiet thing. No mezuzahs on the door. Like, I mean, just, you hit it. And so me just doing that, believe it or not, was anxiety provoking. I was like, am I doing the right thing? Is this what's going to happen? But I just started with little things like that. And then when the conflict started happening in May, a lot of my colleagues were like medical colleagues were using the words apartheid and genocide and colonialization and all of those, 5 lies, I like to call them. And so I was like, you know what, I have more followers than these people. I better start, going full force. So I was spending about 8.5 hours a day on my phone, in addition to being a mom of 3 and running a practice and an online business and all of that. I think I was probably spending every waking moment either working or on my phone.
Wow.
And I did that for about 30 days straight. It was very anxiety provoking. My family was like, what are you doing? This is dangerous. Just put your head in the sand. It's kind of like, Jews have done for a very long time.
Right.
But I just said, you know what, if I don't speak up, how do I expect my kids to speak up? What kind of future am I creating for my children? Which is very similar, right, to what's happening in Iran. I think that women being at the forefront of, social media activism, definitely men too, but I feel like I've just seen the women go, crazy. I just think that we're doing it for our children. We're doing it for our sisters, and same with Iran. They're doing it for the future. They're doing it for their sisters and for their friends and for their future, families. And so I think when that is the root cause, there is nothing that you won't do. And so it was almost like I couldn't stop because there was such a need. And I was doing it for my kids and for, all the kids. So that's sort of how it happened. I was just sort of threw myself deep into it. And I know the first post I actually put up, I lost 3,000 followers in like 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But I just said, you know what are followers for if I can't tell them what I think? If I can't be authentic and I can't be myself, what's the point? It's just fake. Everything's fake. And I just knew I couldn't live with myself. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I was just quiet. And it's never been me. I've always been someone who speaks up and speaks out. Whether it's to my benefit or to my detriment, it's just who I am. And so I just had to be true to that.
Absolutely. And I think you're doing such an honor to your ancestors. You just spoke about how they couldn't be proudly Jewish in Iran, and now, you couldn't even say Shabbat Shalom, and now you're, I think it's very admirable and very noble, the work that you're doing for the Jewish people. Did you have any other, losing any friends or having any arguments that have gone beyond the social media?
Not losing friends. I work so much. I always say like my patients are my friends. Every time I'm doing like an awake surgery or an awake procedure, I'm like, what's going on in the world? Like, this is my social hour. I did have some patients who are prominent family pro BDS and did lose them, but that's okay. Maybe they'll come back one day when they realize and maybe educate themselves a little bit more on what they've done. But for the most part, the exact opposite of what I thought was going to happen happened. I thought I was going to lose patients. I thought, whatever. But what happened is my patients now were like, I loved you before and I'm obsessed with you now. So it was like And what I realized, Hen, is like, you can't have people obsessed with you and not have people who hate you. You have to choose a side. And walking this tightrope of what's the right thing to say at this point in time, guess what? That tightrope moves, and what you say today might come back to bite you in the butt later because you weren't being authentic to yourself. So I always say, be authentic to yourself, have good reasons, come from a place of love, come from a place of your core values. You can't go wrong, because that tightrope of what might be right to say today might not be right to say 10 years from now. And then people are going to be like, well, you said this 10 years ago. And you're like, well, I didn't really believe that. It's ridiculous. Our parents brought us to America so that we can have freedom of thought and freedom of speech. And I'm going to say what I think, and I'm going to say it loudly. And I encourage everyone else to do the same. That's why we're in America.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I think it's so true. I mean, the more authentic you are, and the more proud of who you are, the more people resonate with it, and people love it at the end. There's no shame in who you really are. So I love that about your work and about what you're doing. And we are right in the aftermath of Kanye West's anti-Semitic remarks, which I feel like it's been going on for so long. It's every day something new from this guy. Jewish people all over, and specifically young Jews that have been following Kanye West and his music and all, this whole industry, have really become, I think a lot of them are afraid, and they feel like this might lead to more bad things that might come. What is your advice for them to cope and to fight back against it?
Yeah, I've even had other influencers, adults, reaching out to me being like, I'm so deflated. I can't believe he said that. I feel hopeless. And I'm like, I feel more like energized. I don't know why, but I'm a big, again, freedom of speech. I want to know what people are thinking. I don't want them to hide what they're thinking. I want to know what they're thinking. I'm going to hold them accountable. Not that I believe in cancel culture, but I do think there should be consequences, right? So when your child says something, you don't cancel them. You don't say, I'm not your mother anymore. There's consequences, but you try to educate them and teach them and move them in the right direction, right? So that's sort of how I feel with Kanye West. I want to know what he's been brainwashed to think by Farrakhan and all of those people. All of that needs to come out. As a physician, I don't try to, if I think someone has cancer, I don't try to hide it and not do those tests because I don't want to hear the C word, right? I'm going to bring it all in the open and apply the correct treatment to the correct diagnosis once I've gotten there. So that's kind of the same way I look at anti-Semitism as a cancer. Bring it out. Let's make the correct diagnosis. Let's not pussyfoot around it. And then we apply the correct treatment, whether that's consequences, whether that's education, whether that's, I'm making my decisions based off of, how I feel about that person. So I'm not a person to be like, oh, why did he say that? I'm happy. Like, to let me know what you think. I'm going to let you know what I think, but I have to give the same, potential for freedom of speech and freedom of thought to other people as well. Do I think it's, he's been canceled? I don't think he's been canceled. Are there consequences to what he said? Absolutely. There's consequences for all of our actions. But I don't want people to be afraid. This is not new, right? Bring it out in the open. Thank God we have social media. Thank God we have, this amazing cross-cultural, cross-world discourse where we can actually hash it out, get to the bottom of it, get to the root reason why he's saying that, this Farrakhanic language, and address it.
Wow, I love the analogy, and I think you're absolutely spot on, as ever. Listen, I feel like we can keep on talking for 2 weeks, but we're coming to the end of this podcast, and I just wanted to know what's next for you, what other projects are coming, and what we can look out for.
Oh my gosh, I'm always like doing 50 million things, but definitely want to do some TV shows, definitely want to do some TV again. I think I was always an entertainer. I was always in theater, and I danced and I sang when I was, younger. So I think it's like in me. I love that creativeness.
Yeah.
So
another
definitely,
season, please.
so definitely something like that. And just, being there for my kids right now. I have 2 teenagers and 1 preteen. So I think it's super important to to be there as a mom, doing my best on that, learning every day, but also just, growing the practice, working on, patient experience, all of those things. So definitely have my brain cut into 5 different categories right now, all moving forward.
I love that, and we'll keep following you. And thank you so much for this time, for everything you're doing. Dr. Sheila Nazarian, you're an incredible force to be reckoned with. So thank you. Really appreciate your time and everything you're doing.
And thank you and everything that you're doing. Super important work. And I think we all just have to take whatever it is that is within our power. And I always say, step it up a notch, like move yourself into like slightly uncomfortable. And that's where you should be for that moment.
I love that.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Fresh Look. Be sure to subscribe to our channels to stay up to date on the latest episode. We'll see you next time on Fresh Look.